My favorite thing to photograph is people that have found their passion in life. So I knew when I met Whitney, I had to ask her for a photo. Whitney is the owner of a local yarn shop that my wife loves to go to. And the last time we were there, I asked if she would sit for a portrait. So in this video, I'm gonna take you behind the scenes on this shoot, starting with the planning, through the shoot day, and then how I select and retouch my images at the end. When I first talked to Whitney, we planned the shoot about a week out because I had some other projects I was working on, and I wanted some time to plan out these photos. I typically do all my planning with pen and paper. I just like to cut down on screen time as much as I can. For this pre-planning, I just wanted to come up with a simple shot list that I could refer to on the shoot day to just kind of jog my memory if I start to run out of ideas. And then I also just had some simple gear lists and a few styling notes for Whitney that I already texted to her. So planning is all done. We're actually shooting tomorrow around 1 p.m. So I'll be back here in the morning, run you through the gear that I'm bringing with me on the shoot, and then take you along for that shoot. We sold our desk, so this room, the office, is pretty empty until we get a new standing desk. But today's shoot day, I'm running a little bit behind, so I'm gonna quickly run through the gear that I'm bringing with me, and then we're gonna pack up and head over to Whitney's shop, and Amanda's gonna film some behind the scenes stuff for me while I shoot these portraits with Whitney. So I'm gonna do the whole shoot on the Sony 50mm f1.2. And I'm gonna use the Sony a7 IV, which is the camera I'm filming on now. And then for lighting gear, we have the Profoto B10 Plus. We're just working with one light today, and then I think I'm gonna bring probably like a big umbrella with front diffusion, and then I might also bring my beauty dish for some tighter and headshot stuff. But that's pretty much it. Just one lens, a camera, and one light. Keep it nice and simple. And then we're also gonna bring the Osmo Pocket 3. Amanda's gonna shoot behind the scenes stuff on that. And I think that's pretty much it, simple shoot. All right, let's get all packed up and we'll head over there. You excited?
Terrified.
Yeah? Most people are.
I should have told you I'm like so bad at taking photos.
Everybody says that.
No, but I really am.
So I always start a shoot with a quick scout around the location, just to look at the ambient light and pick out some angles and some backgrounds that I want to use. Once I'm ready to bring my subject in, I'll normally just show them where to stand or sit and how I want them to pose. I always remind them that the first few images are just tests. I need to get my light dialed in and balanced with the ambient light, and it's always good to help them get loosened up a bit so they don't feel so tense right at the start of the shoot. We started shooting with Whitney and I realized I left all my CTO gels at home, so I can't balance my daylight colored flash with the very warm lights that are in her shop. And I don't want to cut out all the ambient light and just shoot with flash because you lose a lot of that warmth of the shop. So I had to run back home, I'm grabbing my gels, and then we'll get back to the shoot. Now that my light color was balanced, we get into some real shooting. In this first setup, this white post seemed a little distracting. It was very bright and it was kind of pulling my eye away from the subject, Whitney. So I moved Whitney over to try and hide it behind her, but then I didn't like this big empty space on the right side of the frame. So I had her move back, and I just shot vertical so that that post wasn't included in the photo. As I go through a shoot, I'm obviously paying attention to my subject, but I also want to pay attention to everything that's around them in the frame. I don't want anything else in the photo that distracts from my main subject. On a shoot like this, with someone that's not comfortable in front of the camera, I always make sure that we're taking breaks often, and I just try to keep the mood fun and light. Sometimes you can get a little caught up in one setup, and you start giving little posing tips, and for someone that's not used to being in front of the camera, you can get kind of stuck and end up with this awkward looking pose that really just doesn't look natural. So I try to change setups often and just get Whitney moving around a little bit so that when we settle into a new setup, she's in a pose that just feels a little natural to her. In this shoot, each setup was really only like 5 to 10 minutes, and the whole shoot was under 2 hours. Because again, someone that's not experienced in front of the camera, it's very draining to have the lens pointed at you for a long time. So I try to keep these shoots pretty short, and it's not just draining for the subject. Creativity uses up a lot of your mental energy. So having some notes, having that time to plan beforehand, and then having a loose shot list just to spark new ideas can really help you keep your energy levels up on a shoot. Oh, all right. That was a good shoot. It's been a couple days since I shoot with Whitney. I just haven't had time to finish up this video. But today our standing desk showed up, so I'm gonna put that together right now, and then I'll have a place to work, and I'll film the post-production for this shoot and kind of show you how I sort through the images and select the keepers. And then I'll walk you through the retouching on an image and show you all the finals from that shoot. Now, this is not a super high quality standing desk. This is kind of a budget, the cheapest one I could find on Amazon. But we're kind of rearranging everything in our condo before the baby shows up. So this whole studio office renovation is on a very tight budget. I got the standing desk all set up. The office is a little bit closer to where I want it. I still have to repaint the walls, find some art to hang on the walls, and I want my little fig tree here to grow a lot taller, but we're getting close. So let's go through these photos from Whitney's shoot real quick. I've basically just done some super simple exposure and white balance corrections and then copy and pasted those to all the images. It just makes it easier to review if I like the image or not. Once I narrow this down to my final selects, then I'm gonna go back and I'll start from scratch with each one of those. And in Capture One, I'll tweak exposure and white balance and stuff like that, but I normally export a very flat looking image with no contrast added to it. And then I do most of my retouching in Photoshop, and then I start adding contrast layers after I do all the skin retouching and everything. So right now, we're just gonna work through Capture One. We'll look through the images real quick, and I'll show you how I narrow my images down to my final selects. So these are kind of the first images after my tests that I would really start to consider. And normally on this first pass, I work through very, very fast, and it's just a gut feeling if I like the image or not. And I'm just gonna mark it either with a 3-star rating or a 2-star rating. And then I actually use color tags. So I have my keyboard commands set up so that 8 will mark it yellow, which is kind of like a maybe for me. 7 will mark it green, that's a definite yes. And then 9 will mark it red, and that's a no, or one that I want to delete. Normally I don't delete anything unless I know I'll never use it, someone's blinking or sneezing. If I don't want to select the image and move it forward to the next round, I just leave it blank. I'm just going to finish working through this initial first pass really quick, and then I can go through and filter just those images that are marked yellow, and then kind of repeat that process over and over until I narrow it down to just the handful of images that I want to move forward with. So now we finished up our first pass marking yellow, and we're just gonna go over here and filter. We actually didn't cut it down that much because I like a lot of these images. So now I'm just gonna do this pass over and over, and I can either hit 6 to get rid of the yellow tag, or I can use star markings and kind of progressively get higher and higher ratings. And I'm just gonna work through, try and narrow this down to like 5 images that really tell that story of her and her shop. All right, we got things narrowed down to 8 images. As you can see here, they're pretty flat coming out of Capture One. We're gonna export these as PSDs and open them up in Photoshop. And that's where I do any skin retouching or hair retouching. And then I start using layers to add curves and different color adjustments to get to a final image. So we finished up retouching this first image. I'll quickly show you some of the changes I made. So I'm gonna turn on all my color corrections first. This will make the retouching easier to see. This is the flat image coming out of Capture One. And then after contrast and curves and stuff in Photoshop, this is what we get. You can see just a bunch of curves layers. This one kind of brings down some of the saturation, but all of these are just curves that do different things in the image. And then my retouch layers are just some dodging and burning layers and some eye retouching. Kind of subtle, but I think it's worth the effort. So I'm just gonna work through the rest of these, and then I'll show you all 8 that I selected as my final retouched images. And that'll be the end of the video. So Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.